Good morning again. I'm Margie Engel, here to finish up some of our activities with summer camp and blocks and frames. So in this issue we are going to show you how we actually finish up the quilts. We have finished the blocks and frames quilt top, and here it is right here, and we're getting ready to put it together in a sandwich, and you will have help. This is not just you and your camper, you will have assistance with this. You'll notice that we lay it differently because we sandwich the quilts and tie them, so things are a little bit different than bound quilts. The first layer that goes on the table is the batting, and we pull it out and smooth it out. The second layer is the backing, which comes in the kit pre-cut. And the third layer then is the quilt top, and you will notice we have to have right sides together. So the back would be right side up, and the right side of the quilt top would go down on top of that. So these, we tell the children these are kissing each other, and they love that. Then you're going to pin all the way around the entire quilt with the big daggers, the children call them. They really get worried about these pins. We've switched from the little white pins to the big pins, but we need them. They go through all three layers. Now what we do is we determine a place that is going to be left open so that we can turn the quilt inside out after it's sewn all around the edges. To show that and remind us, we do a big cross of 2 pins right here. We leave 3 blocks open, and then we do another cross of pins over here. That way the kids know when they come around, they see that, they know where to start and they know where to stop. So we do that, and then with the kids and with all of the people helping us, we go ahead and we pin, and the only thing we have to be cautious about here is they're going to be sewing right on this edge, so we actually want to pin a little bit further in. So we would come in a little bit. They will be we pin all the way around, and they will then come in with the walking feet. Put the edge of the walking foot here, ignoring all of this, and sew with the walking foot from this point all the way around. The biggest challenge they have with this is they forget and they let this drop off the edge of the table, and it pulls on their sewing. This is where you may have to hold it up for them a little bit and kind of raise it up, or just keep reminding them, get this quilt up, get it off the table, because it drags, and they will pull on it with their hands because they're so intent on making that perfect line. It just takes time and patience, and we have all day long to do that. Tell them, no hurry, we have all day. We do. Then when you get this done, you're going to come back and you're going to trim right next to this edge and trim away all this extra stuff before we make our turn. This is open. So what we do when we're trimming this, let me show you another quilt here that's trimmed already, and you'll see what I'm talking about. When we're trimming, we come along, and at that opening we leave part of the second fabric open like that. It makes it easier to finish the quilt up. So you'll see that is left. We've trimmed along here. It's all sewn. We've trimmed along here, and then we come out where the opening is and leave that so that we can get in there easily, and then when we're folding it, this folds in very conveniently and we don't have a problem. We do trim some of the batting on the back. It just makes life a lot easier. If you forget and go, oh, I forgot to do that, don't worry about it. It still works fine. But that we find makes it a little easier for the kids. The next step then is we turn the entire quilt inside out, or right side out I should say, poke out the corners, and we take it to the ironing board, and we actually press just on the edges. Now don't get too hot of an iron, because of course we're using batting that could melt. But we press around the edges to get a very neat turn, and that's when we actually press this in, and then we put pins there. I'm more used to the straight pins. That way when the child is doing the second sewing around, they get a bound effect, and it automatically closes that for them, and they don't have to hand stitch it closed. Let's talk a little bit about the kids' cabin pattern, which the children use their second year, and this year the third year kids are going to use it. Simply it gives them a lot of choices and options. You see on the board one of the versions, and the kids do get a handout first day, and they look at the handout, and it has 2 different diagrams on there, and they pick from that which way they want their kit to look. Same kit, same fabrics, but they can do 2 different ways. This is usually the quilt of choice, this kind of little zigzag arrangement. And this is just 2 rows, of course. And you will notice it is called Kids Cabin. There's a reason. It's because it is a log cabin variation. Here is the other choice that they can use. It arranges like this. But generally speaking, it doesn't matter which one they use, but generally speaking, we have 9 out of 10 children choose this one. So I'm going to go on and just talk about this for a few minutes. It's just a log cabin with the first logs. Here we see the progression on the borders, and this is exactly how you will teach the student to sew them. They sew one, and they're sewing, of course, to the right like this, and we add the second block, and we press as we go, and we keep adding blocks, and then this is the final block, and we sew 10 blocks this way and 10 blocks this way, simply by altering which fabric we begin the block with. We always start at the top of the quilt. This is directional, so they know this is the top, and they'll start sewing on the top and then rotate through. The diagram explains that there is block A, that is this block, and there is block B. The only, well, part of it's to, of course, make the arrangement, but it's also important when they press, because when they make block A and you go to the ironing board, I press between each. I'll put this on and I'll press, and then also that and I'll press. And every time I press the first set, block A, I will press it so that everything goes toward the center. In the second set of blocks, the second 10 blocks, I will press everything here so it goes away from the center. And you know the reason why if you look up here, because we have block A and underneath it block B. We press these this way, and the one seam that you'll want to teach the students to pin is not necessarily, they will be pinning the junctures of each block when they sew their rows together, but they will also be pinning the structure right here, and we've already pressed it, so they nestle together very, very nicely. If you have trouble with that, of course, we can show you another more exact way to pin. But for these purposes, it works quite well just to push the 2 together. They nestle together, and they work very, very well. The rest of the quilt is done very much like we do blocks and frames, except that this has 2 borders, and the kids have a choice. They can use the 2 borders. Sometimes they want to stop with the first border. The first border does not have the bias joins, so they learn an added skill set with the second border. It just simply makes it a little bit bigger, because you can see this is relatively small to begin with. This is an 8-inch block. So we like to take the quilt size up a little bit, because this is a cuddle quilt that they study with. So that pretty much explains exactly how this quilt goes together. You're an old hand at log cabin, so this will be a piece of cake for you. One of the neat skills that the children learn in the quilts is how to measure and then attach borders. So we don't actually use measuring tools simply, or measuring tape, simply because here's an easy way for the kids to do it, and it works out quite well. We lay the quilt out, folded in half on a table, and the folding in half doesn't matter, but we want to work at the midpoint of the quilt, and I am here at the midpoint of the quilt. We lay it out on the table, smooth it very much, the entire quilt, smooth it out, take our borders, and then just put them down and pin them together so that they are actually, I can even pin them to the quilt if I want to, so that they are immobile and will stay together. We know, because we stretch this across the entire width of the quilt and then the length, we know that this is how long this is going to be. So we come along with a ruler and line the ruler up to the edge of the quilt. Yes, there's a border here, and this is the second border, but the process is the same. Line up the border to the edge of the quilt. Take our handy markers, of which we have 2 different kinds. These are those chalk markers. This one works like a tube of lipstick. You pull the tube off, and there it goes. And just run the chalk across there against the ruler. Now you have a perfect measurement. I don't know what the width is. We have a rough idea. But that way it's perfect. You can pick this up, cut the edges off. Just go ahead, and you can do this if you want, or let the student trim those edges off. You don't even need a rotary cutter for this. And then you're ready with the proper width and length of borders to put onto the quilt. Now, the one other good skill that the kids learn in the kids' cabin is one of the borders is too short. They have to join the borders and do the bias join. I hope you can see this on the camera. Here's a bias join. The quilt length is too long for a 42-inch strip, so they learn how to correctly do the bias joins. We will have a demonstration on that, of course, but it's another skill that they learn in doing this, and this is a second year and third year quilt, so we keep adding their skills. Well, I think we've done it. I hope that you have gotten very comfortable with what we do at Kids Camp. The kids they'll love it. They'll absolutely love it, and you will too. So there's only one more thing to have, and that's to tell you the secret. Because the secret is one of those things that the kids are going to ask first day, and you'll just say, oh, don't worry about that. On this sweet machine, there is a start-stop button, and the children will immediately look at that, and you will, and you'll think that's a start-stop button. We have to use that. You do not. The only reason this start-stop button is on here is this machine will sew without a foot pedal by using the start-stop button, and some of your machines now do that. We don't use that with the kids simply because they get excited and they forget how to turn it off and the machine keeps on going. So we just use the foot pedal. This only operates when the foot pedal is not attached, so that's another good thing about it. But we love it, and teenage kids in retreat sit cross-legged at the machine and they just think they're the hottest things because they use that. The other thing that the kids will love is they'll pull this tray out, and you can't see it on camera, but the tray has a picture of all the stitches that are in this little machine. It's little, but it's mighty, and there are a lot of stitches. We don't use these in camp, but the kids certainly do like to see those. And that does it. It'll be Friday afternoon. We will have a quilt parade, and you will have had the best time in your life. So I hope you're ready. We are. Thank you so much for watching all of this and being with us.